Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes! Eyes! Ah! Ah!
Whenever a Discord episode comes along, fans are always satisfied with the results. They're perfectly happy to see Discord just messing around with the other characters while doing chaotic things. Which leads us to our Discord episode of the season, Discordant Harmony. So considering that it's a Discord episode, it must be a lot of fun, right? Well, unfortunately, it's not really all that fun. Discord and Fluttershy are enjoying themselves at their tea party when Discord suggests that he'd like to host the next one. The only problem is that he's never hosted one before, so he goes into town to get all of the stuff that he'll need for the perfect tea party. But as he goes from place to place, some of the townspeople question how Fluttershy can possibly be friends with someone like Discord. With this in mind, Discord decides that the best way to make this tea party perfect for Fluttershy is to be as normal as possible. He proceeds to renovate his house into being a normal house, and transforms himself into the most unchaotic spirit of chaos around. But when Flutters arrives for the party, she notices that Discord isn't acting like himself, which is causing him to fade away from existence. Now she has to figure out how to bring chaos back into Discord's life to keep him from disappearing. This does sound like a good setup for an episode, and to its credit, it does pace itself appropriately. It feels like it's building up its conflict and setting up later events in the story evenly. And I also like the concept of seeing this other side of Discord, placing himself in a situation where he has to restrain himself in order to feel accepted by his friend. The problem, though, is how a lot of the concept is handled directly. What makes Discord's antics so entertaining to watch is when he's using it around the other characters and seeing them reacting to his nonsense. When Discord is by himself, you really don't get any of those upsides. He has to work off of himself in order to make the antics interesting, but because he's so used to the way he is, it makes the chaos stuff feel less energetic. And unfortunately, a lot of the episode is like this. It's just Discord carrying a conversation with one of his fabricated clones, which isn't really amusing. It feels too dull and typical, at least the way that it's done in this episode. I just don't get that same spark that I usually get from watching Discord. It's not nearly as fun as seeing him interacting with the main six, or Trixie, or even the changelings. I mean, there are instances in the episode where Discord messes around with the townspeople, and he does it in a humorous, sarcastic, and even short-tempered way. But the rest of the episode, aside from his conversations with Fluttershy, is just Discord talking to himself. And there's a very lacking sense of humor in that. It's too much of a one-trick portrayal. Speaking of the humor, the comedy also feels really weak. Yeah, for an episode mostly about Discord compromising with himself, it's mostly not really funny. I can only think of 2 or 3 instances that made me laugh, and the rest of it is just like generic dialogue being passed as jokes. It's probably because most of it is just Discord talking to himself, which I already said was dull and typical, but it still feels like it could have been done a lot better. Considering the really good jokes that we've gotten from him in the past, there should have been more than a few effective jokes. Even the chaos stuff that they do with his powers doesn't have a lot of innovation to it. There's some creative stuff, like turning his fingers into little versions of himself, and imitating the other ponies by literally copying their color palettes. But the rest of it feels too familiar and too average to be all that clever. It's mostly just stuff that we've seen Discord do already, and it's not handled in an interesting way. A couple of things don't even make any sense. And I mean that from a narrative standpoint and not because it's about Discord. Like, can Discord magically just make money appear out of thin air? Was he always able to do that? And we have to assume that the money is a magical figment, right? Is it valid to use for buying stuff? How do the store owners know that the money won't just disappear later? But if it's not really magic money, what about the other possibility? If it's money that he already owned and he just has the ability to transport it, how did he even get that much? What kind of job does he have that he's just able to throw away money like that for a tea set? If I paid that much for a tea set, I'd do more than just drink with it. What I'm saying is that there's a lot of questionable implications knowing that Discord can just make money appear like that. And during the third act, there's a moment where he can't touch anything since he's fading away, but then it suddenly shows that he is able to touch stuff while he's fading, only to have him go back to not being able to touch stuff when he can't even flick his own fingers. That is just very absent-minded writing at play. It's an instance where the episode contradicts itself not once, but twice in a matter of seconds. How can he not be able to touch something one instance, but then be able to do it the second time and then not be able to do it the third time? It's an extremely easy thing to notice, and it's very distracting. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, what good stuff did the episode have? Well, I did mention earlier that there were a few instances of chaos magic and character interaction that Discord gets involved in that I really like. Scenes like this are able to fully capture what makes Discord such a fun character. His antics are just so much more entertaining to watch when they're bouncing off of the other characters. There's more creativity within these scenarios, and there's more personality implemented in them. Even when they're not funny, they still have a creative charm to them that makes them fun to watch. Pinky's cameo is handled in a really good way. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and she offers advice to Discord that's actually very sound and useful. She understands that the two have been close for a while and wants to help him out, but she also takes the time to assure him that he shouldn't be stressing himself, and how he simply needs to think of something that would make Fluttershy happy. It's just that Discord ends up taking it the wrong way due to his insecurities. Plus, it's just so much fun seeing Diane being able to catch Discord off guard. She's so unpredictable even for him, which just has a hilarious irony to it. And I like how the episode adds a new sentiment to Fluttershy's and Discord's friendship. Considering how they spend time together in this episode, it's interesting to see how attached that Fluttershy is to Discord's antics, even looking forward to whatever crazy stuff that he has planned. And the way that Discord forces himself to act more restrained and proper demonstrates a level of dedication that he has for feeling more accepted by her. Even if he takes the advice the wrong way, it still has a nice sentiment considering how much her support means to him. The third act is the best part of the episode, and it's where most of its strength lies. We see how smart Fluttershy is and how she thinks her way through this troubling situation, even demonstrating how well she knows Discord by acting out his chaotic antics in a way that only she can. It's also clever how well she improvises during this situation, using every resource to her advantage in a sensible way. And the knowledge that Discord can survive without chaos in his atmosphere kind of helps to justify a lot of his troublemaking. Knowing that chaos is not just a passion of his, but also a means to even exist, is a way of understanding why he does what he does. It doesn't justify everything that he's done, but it's still an interesting and even highly needed insight on his nature, exploring his motivations for doing all of this crazy stuff. And the moral of the episode is both a nice message and one that really fits the story that it goes for. Even the way Fluttershy explains it to Discord gives it more meaning. What makes their friendship so special is because the two are so different from each other. She explains how his chaotic antics have given her a different perspective, new ways of looking at the world around her, and that's why it means so much to her. But there's also another message to be taken from this that's just apparent enough to be subtle. If you really want to have a good time with your friends, it's as easy as being yourself. And we see how just by being himself that Discord and Fluttershy will always have a good time together. It's a real shame that this episode came across as mostly mediocre. There's a good chunk of stuff that I like, even love about the episode, but the majority of it just feels like a compilation of John Delancey talking to himself. And the story doesn't utilize that concept in an interesting fashion, even with Discord as the main character. I remember liking this episode much more during my first viewing, but after more than one viewing, the errors of the episode are much more apparent. I suppose it's not a waste of time kind of episode, and there's plenty of good qualities to keep you satisfied. But for an episode that focuses on Discord of all characters, I get the impression that this could have been a lot more entertaining. Hopefully next time they'll come up with something better. Until then, what we've got here is an episode that's just okay. Take it for what it's worth and hopefully enjoy the ride. MisAnthro Pony over and out.